Hi there, welcome back to our leather jacket tutorial. Up next, we are going to move on to our gel pen. So we're just going to add our stitches with our gel pen, and you want to make sure that you are touching very lightly. And once again, I do have paper under the palm of my hand so that I don't smear. Now that we are almost finished adding stitches, and of course you can add stitches wherever you need to have them, the next thing to do is get your gray marker, and I'm using a darker gray, and you're going to go around the edges of your snap buttons, kind of like a C shape, but not all the way around a full circle. So you're leaving a little tiny bit of white that is not touched by the gray, but you are making like a letter C shape on these outer edges so that the white is in the middle. Now you can use your gray, I'm using the same one, to soften some of those white spaces for your highlights, and that's going to be very lightly. Now that we're almost finished softening some of those white spaces, we're going to go in between the dashes with our gray, and that will define your zipper teeth even more. So just softening some of these white spaces with the gray is our next step. And then once we finish with that, we are going to move to our white correction pen. So for the white correction pen, we're just going to add a little bit to our snap buttons to have that contrast of a really bright and then a medium and a dark. So go on ahead and add, and especially if there's any place where you've lost some of your button, you can bring it back. But this is mostly in the center of those buttons. Up next, we're going to be doing our dash with our correction pen, and these dashes are at the zipper so that now you have white space, you have a dash, and then you have the black ink. So all three of it combined adds to a very effective zipper look. Then once again, you can knock down some of the white with your gray if you feel like you have too much. So it's a balance that goes back and forth. So now that we're finished with our correction pen, we're going to move on to spreading some more of our marker and using our blender to blend another round. So just pick up a little bit of your black marker and we're going to start to take away even more of the white. And it's a little bit at a time. You want to make sure not to go too heavy. So this blending is just knocking down little tiny bits of the white, and as always we start on the left side since that's our shadow side, and we're blending so that everything starts to come together. So now we are going to go with our white colored pencil next on our light source side, just to make sure that we can have an even more obvious light. These highlights are soft though, so it's kind of a fuzzy soft look that you get, but it's only going to go on the right sides of our garment. So here is where that white is going to start to take away more and more of our dark. And at the collar, you'll notice where it's folded, there's a light right at the top of the fold. And then typically on the right sides of our garment in general. Your thumb again is back, index finger forward, so that you can lay the pencil flat. It does need to be nice and sharp. Okay, so now it's time for our last step. Once you finish your highlights, remember those were very, very soft and you had your thumb back, your index. So the first thing we want to do is grab that black colored pencil and gently, tiny small circles, very light pressure, start to take away a bit more of the edges of our whites. So where you have that real harsh lightning bolt feeling, you want to just take some of those edges away so that it really starts to look like fabric is folding, because our leather does make these very harsh crinkly folds, but we need to have a balance. So we want to soften it just a little bit with our black colored pencil, and you're going to finish off your product in this way. The balance here is that you don't want to push too hard, because we don't want to take the white completely away. We want to be able to make a very light pressure with this particular round so that we can still see through some of that white space. You're just knocking it down so that the fabric truly does look like it's pulling around the body. And when you do that, you do need to see through some of your white. So focus in on those areas that are glaring and that stand out the most, and especially those harder edges where you have the lightning bolt points and the edges and the triangular shapes, and we're just going to soften those, but not too harsh to where you don't see any white at all. We still want to see through some of our white, which is how clothing actually looks when you are wearing it. Just darkening my edges here to make sure my left side does still feel darker. And that will be it for this round. I definitely look forward to seeing you in our next video. Until then, happy sketching.